Hungary's top diplomat signed energy deals in Moscow during rare visit a European Union official, underscoring Budapest's division with rest of bloc over Russian invasion Ukraine. Russia has expanded penalties for those who evade conscription under a new package of legislative changes that critics say could herald new calls for President Vladimir Putin's war. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will meet with Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki on Tuesday to discuss the war. Important developments. Austin says U.S. will deliver every stone to track leaked papers. Russia's uncertain measures keep oil flowing despite sanctions. IMF follows only JPMorgan for most optimistic outlook of Russian economy. Russian drops drop by $51 billion as energy cash dries. Hungarian envoy signs energy agreements in Moscow, defying EU's stance. At least 7 in new Azerbaijan-Armenia border conflict. Blinken attacks Russia on access to arrested correspondent. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken said that Russian authorities still do not grant American diplomats access to imprisoned Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovitch, and that this violation of diplomatic norms will further erode his international reputation after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And I think that sends a very strong message to people around the world to refrain from even stepping in there lest they be arbitrarily detained, Blinken said at a briefing Tuesday. Austin promises to find the source of leaked documents in his first public statement about the embarrassing leak. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the United States would not stop until it learned how a slew of classified documents about Ukraine, Israel, and other countries had surfaced online. "We take this very seriously," Austin told reporters at a briefing on Tuesday. "And we're going to keep digging and turning every rock upside down until we find the source and extent of this." Austin said he was first briefed on April 6 what he called reports unauthorized disclosure sensitive and confidential material, compiled by the Department of Defense. Since then, the Department of Justice has launched an investigation, and the United States has tried to reassure its allies about its ability to keep secrets safe. Trudeau meets thankful Ukrainian colleague. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal met with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa on Tuesday for Canadian assistance, including Trudeau's $2.4 billion Canadian loan for Ukraine announced in the federal budget last month. He thanked Trudeau. Also said that Canada has imposed a new set of sanctions against the mercenary Wagner Group, Russia's aviation industry, and the Belarusian financial sector. Ukraine's steel production highest since the start of war. According to data provided by Kiev-based Sense Bank, Ukraine's steel production reached a 13-month high as industry's first sign of recovery after the deep fall brought on by Russian invasion. Ukraine's steel industry has been severely hit, including the demolition of the Azovstal plant in occupied Mariupol. Russia's current account surplus falls as energy cash dries. Russia's current account surplus shrank by more than $51 billion last quarter from a year ago as sanctions have increasingly deprived the government what has been a critical source of foreign currency since the invasion Ukraine. The current account surplus, roughly difference between exports and imports, slid to $18.6 billion in the first 3 months of year, according to preliminary central bank data. Ukraine's richest man sues Russia. Ukrainian billionaire Rinat Akhmetov has filed an arbitration suit against Russia for confiscating assets belonging to his SCM Group in the occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions, according to a statement that did not specify which court the case was in. Assets seized or destroyed in the 2 eastern Ukraine regions between 2014-2017 include metals mining enterprises, energy infrastructure, real estate, the headquarters stadium of Donetsk-based football team Shakhtar Donetsk, which cost more than $400 million. "We will seek justice using all available legal means in every possible institution and court, because Russia's crimes against Ukraine and Ukrainians since 2014 must be punished," Akhmetov said. He stated that he plans invest any compensation to rebuild and contribute economic growth. Russian companies' shift to Astana to maintain international trade. Kazakhstan's capital could become the main stock market for Russian companies that want their shares continue to be traded by international investors, as they were forced to leave London and New York following the Ukrainian invasion. According to sources, Russia's largest gold miner Polyus PJSC is considering whether to list its global depository receipts on the Astana International Exchange. Russia's Rosagro plc listed its GDRs in the capital of Kazakhstan, switching from London in March. IMF outperforms only JPMorgan in most optimistic outlook for Russian economy. The International Monetary Fund is taking one most optimistic views Russian economy this year, despite cost sanctions on invasion Ukraine. A raise to 0.7%. The IMF's latest forecast means that Russia saw one of the largest upward revisions among major economies in January, when it expects gross domestic product to rise 0.3% 2023. For example, by taking very strong fiscal measures, they were able to maintain a sizable momentum in the economy, IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas told reporters in Washington. Hungarian ambassador signs energy agreements in Moscow. Hungary's top diplomat has struck a deal to expand gas flows from Russia, and Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has renewed a financing deal for its nuclear power plant as he moves to increase his country's dependence on Russian oil, gas and nuclear resources. Hungary will now have the option to buy more natural gas from Russia in addition to an existing long-term agreement before the winter storage season. Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó also agreed to further secure crude oil supplies through the Druzhba pipeline, which runs through Ukraine. Ukraine calls for close relations with India. Russia to extend penalties for smugglers. The changes are part of a package of measures aimed at toughening rules as Russia seeks to expand its armed forces by nearly 50% over a few years to 1.5 million people. They are designed to correct the problems that arose in the mobilization of 300,000 reservists to fight in Ukraine last year, triggering widespread popular discontent. The plan included in hastily proposed amendments, approved unanimously by the lower house of parliament on Tuesday, would prohibit potentially summonable persons from leaving country, obtaining a driver's license, buying or selling a driver's license if they do not respond to electronic notifications, buying property and loans. The changes also remove the need for in-person submission of draft notices, long enjoyed by those wishing to avoid service, and replace it with an online system. The Kremlin reiterated on Tuesday that no further wave of mobilization is planned at this time. Ukraine cleared 2,323 hectares of mines. More than 12,000 hectares of farmland are inspected by Ukrainian emergency services, military and non-governmental operators, Economy Minister Yulia Svirodenko said in a statement. Hungary's top diplomat visits Moscow, ignoring EU's attitude. Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó's talks with two energy officials are part of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's effort to maintain his country's dependence on Russian oil, gas and nuclear resources, even as EU partners move for release. After visiting Belarus in February for a rare visit to a Moscow ally under Western sanctions, Szijjártó met with Alexander Novak, Russia's Deputy Prime Minister for Energy, and Alexei Likachev, CEO of state nuclear company Rosatom Corp.